They mocked her because of her skin, but what would happen when she spoke the truth in perfect French? Isabelle Martin stood quietly near the grand painting, her eyes scanning every brushstroke, every detail, as the wealthy guests whispered around her. She had always been fascinated by art, but tonight was different. The gallery smelled of expensive perfume and polished wood, and Julian Crawford, the arrogant collector, was boasting loudly about his latest acquisition. Isabelle noticed something off, a tiny flaw in the signature that didn't match the style of the artist. She whispered to herself in French, pointing subtly, but Clara Martin, her mother, grabbed her arm nervously, warning her to stay quiet. Julian laughed loudly, mocking anyone who dared question him, his tone dripping with condescension and subtle racism. "That painting is perfect," he boomed, glancing down at Isabelle, assuming she was just a maid's daughter with no knowledge. Her heart pounded, but she refused to back down, her eyes meeting Julian's with quiet confidence. She cleared her throat and spoke in perfect French. The room froze, whispers turning into murmurs, as the statement echoed in the air. Julian's laughter faltered, a flicker of doubt crossing his face, while Edward Thompson tried to intervene, smoothing over the moment, attempting to maintain control. Isabelle's voice was calm, firm, and precise, and the guests leaned in, curious and shocked, some turning red with embarrassment at having doubted a young black girl. Julian waved his hand arrogantly, trying to dismiss her, but Isabelle's knowledge and courage had already planted seeds of suspicion in the room. Clara squeezed her hand lightly, proud yet anxious, while Isabelle's mind raced, determined to prove her point. The gallery buzzed with tension, half the guests impressed, half uneasy, unsure how to react to the audacity of her claim. Even Julian's smug confidence wavered, his ego slightly bruised but not yet defeated. Isabelle's fingers brushed over the edge of the painting frame, analyzing again, making mental notes, as she prepared to reveal the truth behind the masterpiece. The night was far from over, and Isabelle knew that patience, observation, and courage would be her greatest allies in exposing the shocking reality. Don't forget to comment and subscribe to see how Isabelle uncovers the truth. The full video is coming up next, and you won't want to miss it. Isabelle Martin felt the weight of every eye in the gallery as murmurs spread across the room after she had declared in French that the painting was fake. Julian Crawford's face twisted in disbelief, his ego bruised, and he waved his hand dismissively, expecting everyone to laugh at a young black maid's daughter questioning his prized collection. Isabelle, however, stood her ground, her back straight, her gaze steady, fully aware of the courage it took to confront him. Clara Martin whispered softly, holding her daughter's hand, silently urging her to stay composed while fearing the harsh social repercussions that could follow. Edward Thompson moved closer to Julian, attempting to diffuse the situation with polite explanations about the provenance. Yet he could not hide the flicker of doubt in his eyes as he examined the painting again. The gallery guests shifted in their seats, some leaning in, intrigued, some whispering in disapproval, struggling to reconcile the audacity of a young black girl standing up against wealth and status. Isabelle's sharp eyes traced the details of the canvas, noting the misaligned brush strokes and the subtle differences in color that revealed the forgery, all the while calculating how to present her findings convincingly. Julian laughed nervously, attempting to maintain control, but his tone carried an edge of uncertainty, betraying his discomfort as Isabelle continued to speak in French, detailing her observations with precision. Clara's heart raced, proud yet anxious, as she watched her daughter articulate what many feared to challenge aloud. Edward scribbled quick notes, curiosity overcoming his initial prejudice, realizing that Isabelle's knowledge could be as valuable as it was shocking. Julian's arrogance began to crack as whispers among the gallery guests grew louder, some questioning the authenticity for the first time, others secretly admiring Isabelle's boldness. The tension in the room thickened, a silent war between power and truth, privilege and intellect, prejudice and courage, as the young girl's voice rose above the murmurs, confident and unwavering. Isabelle's revelation had shifted the atmosphere entirely. What had begun as a typical night of social posturing had turned into a moment of reckoning, challenging assumptions about race, status, and knowledge. Clara felt a swell of pride mixed with fear, knowing the social consequences could be severe, yet recognizing that Isabelle's bravery had sparked a conversation that could not be silenced. The guests were caught between their admiration for wealth and astonishment at Isabelle's expertise, while Julian's mask of control faltered under the pressure of scrutiny. Isabelle took a measured breath, preparing to expose the final evidence that would leave the room in awe, knowing every detail mattered, every glance and reaction counted, and every whisper of doubt could tip the scales. Don't forget to comment and subscribe to follow Isabelle's journey as she unravels the shocking truth about the painting and the man who thought he could hide behind his fortune and prejudice. The full story is coming soon, and you won't want to miss it. Isabelle Martin felt a surge of determination as Julian Crawford's eyes darted nervously across the gallery, trying to regain his composure after her bold accusation of the painting being fake. The murmurs of the guests grew louder, whispers weaving through the room as shock, disbelief, and curiosity collided in the air. Clara Martin stood behind her daughter, her hands trembling slightly but her heart swelling with pride, knowing that Isabelle's courage had created a ripple that no amount of wealth or arrogance could immediately quell. Edward Thompson, who had initially approached the night with the usual ambition of pleasing Julian, now found himself torn between loyalty to a client and acknowledgement of undeniable truth. He examined the painting more carefully, noticing the subtle flaws Isabelle had pointed out, each one a testament to her intelligence and careful observation. Julian tried to laugh it off, his voice sharp and condescending, aiming to belittle Isabelle and reassert control. But the gallery guests, previously deferential, began to exchange skeptical glances, questioning whether the authority of money could truly override the evidence in front of them. Isabelle, fluent in French and effortlessly switching to English when needed, explained the irregularities in the brushwork, the anachronistic pigments, and inconsistencies in signature placement with precision and confidence that left even Edward momentarily speechless. She sensed the shift in the room, the delicate balance of power tilting as whispers of admiration and disbelief spread. Julian's face reddened, his arrogance beginning to crack under the weight of both truth and social scrutiny. The polished, condescending man was now visibly rattled, realizing that dismissing a young black maid's daughter had been a grave miscalculation. Clara watched, her maternal instincts mingling with awe and concern, as Isabelle calmly revealed the provenance discrepancies, citing sources and parallels that even seasoned collectors would respect. The gallery guests leaned forward, some nodding subtly, others shaking their heads in incredulity, while a few whispered among themselves, acknowledging that intelligence and courage were not confined by wealth, race, or social status. Edward finally broke the tense silence, carefully questioning Isabelle's analysis, and as she responded with clarity and evidence, even he could not deny the brilliance of her insight. Julian attempted to regain his poise, but every rebuttal felt weaker, more strained, and the room sensed the inevitable humiliation awaiting the once untouchable billionaire. Isabelle held her ground, unwavering, demonstrating that knowledge and observation were forces far stronger than social hierarchy. A young black girl standing tall amidst wealth and prejudice, commanding attention not through power, but through truth and courage. Clara, though anxious about societal judgment, could not help but admire her daughter's poise and intellect, proud that Isabelle had turned a moment of potential ridicule into one of undeniable respect. The gallery guests slowly shifted, their judgments being rewritten in real time as they witnessed the unraveling of Julian Crawford's facade. Isabelle's words carried the weight of justice, intellect, and dignity, challenging every expectation of who could hold authority and who deserved recognition. The tension in the room lingered, a palpable mix of astonishment, shame, and reluctant admiration, as the young woman continued to expose the truth behind the falsified masterpiece. Don't forget to comment and subscribe to witness the climactic conclusion where Isabelle's bravery and intellect leave everyone stunned and justice prevails. The full story is coming soon, and you won't want to miss it. Isabelle Martin felt the eyes of the entire gallery upon her as Julian Crawford's face turned a deep shade of crimson, his arrogance crumbling under the weight of exposure. The guests, initially impressed by wealth and status, now hung on every word of the young black maid's daughter, their whispers filling the room with tension and awe. Clara Martin stood nearby, her heart pounding with pride and anxiety, fearing retaliation, yet marveling at her daughter's courage and intelligence. Edward Thompson, though ambitious and eager to please Julian, could not help but recognize the meticulous precision in Isabelle's observations, each detail undeniable, each point backed by research and fluent explanation. Julian tried to regain control, his condescending tone attempting to belittle Isabelle, but every argument sounded hollow, powerless, as the gallery guests' judgment had shifted irreversibly. Isabelle continued, gracefully and confidently, revealing the full extent of the forgery, explaining the subtle pigments, misaligned brushstrokes, and the historical inconsistencies that Julian had hoped to hide. The murmurs turned into audible gasps as the reality of his deceit became clear, and the once dominant collector found himself frozen, powerless in the face of truth. Clara, feeling a mixture of fear and pride, saw the respect forming around her daughter, a force stronger than money, power, or societal expectation. Edward, now torn between loyalty and integrity, admitted the evidence was irrefutable, and even he felt admiration for Isabelle's intelligence and bravery. The gallery guests shifted uneasily, some realizing how they had underestimated Isabelle based on her age, race, and social background, while others began questioning the culture of privilege that allowed Julian's arrogance to go unchecked for so long. Isabelle's calm and articulate explanations pierced the veneer of wealth and entitlement, revealing that knowledge, courage, and observation could outweigh social hierarchy. Julian, humbled and silent, could no longer maintain his mask of superiority, forced to confront the reality that intelligence and truth transcend money and prejudice. Isabelle's poise remained unwavering, her dignity intact, a clear message that underestimation based on race or status would not define her or silence her voice. Clara felt tears of pride in her eyes as the audience now saw her daughter not just as a maid's child, but as a young woman whose intellect commanded respect and admiration, a lesson in courage and resilience. The gallery erupted into discussions about fairness, truth, and recognition, and even those who had been silent could no longer ignore the power of evidence over entitlement. Julian's influence waned, his attempts at control dismantled by one courageous, brilliant girl who refused to be dismissed. Edward, though impressed, quietly reflected on his own complicity in societal hierarchies, realizing that humility and truth mattered more than pleasing the powerful. Isabelle's revelation had not just exposed a forgery, but challenged a room full of people to rethink prejudice, privilege, and assumptions, leaving an indelible impression on everyone present. This moment would resonate far beyond the gallery walls, inspiring those who doubted themselves and proving that courage, knowledge, and integrity are forces that can topple arrogance and injustice. Don't forget to comment and subscribe to see more stories where courage and intelligence triumph over arrogance and prejudice. The lesson is clear: never underestimate someone based on their appearance, age, or background, because true brilliance often comes from the most unexpected places.